Good morning. Welcome to Samaritan's Heart Mission Church. I'm Pastor Jerry. Last week, of course, Resurrection Sunday. Where did we leave the story? With the empty tomb. Jesus is risen. What seemed to be a failed movement ended in a victory in total surrender. It was the total surrender of Christ that led to victory over sin, and then our total surrender to Him. So this is where we pick up. We talked a lot last week. Jesus surrendered all for us. We need to surrender all for Him. But what does that look like, and where do we go with that so that Resurrection Sunday doesn't remain in the rearview mirror, that we're living it out, and what it means that Jesus gave all for us? It starts with a question. I don't know if you have ever been asked this question. I have, and quite frankly, I have asked other people this question. And it's one of those things on the surface, you think you know what the question means, and you answer based on what you think you know the question means. But what if you don't really know what the question means? Then what? So what's this question we speak of? How is your walk with Jesus? Have you ever been asked that? How do you answer? Now, just, if you're here in church or wherever you are, how do you answer that question? How is your walk with Jesus? Okay, I guess. I'm in church, right? So that's a good sign. I don't mean to be frivolous about it. How do you answer that question? Well, before you can answer any question, you do have to make sure that, to answer it well, you have to make sure you understand. So let's take this question. How is your walk with Jesus? What is my walk? What do we mean when we say we walk with Jesus? When Jesus walked as a man on earth, people did physically walk with Him. If you asked Peter, John, any of the others, even Judas up to a point, how's your walk with Jesus? I walk right next to Him. Talk to Him, walk with Him. I guess my walk is really good. Okay, we don't have the living Jesus to see and walk right next to. So how do we truthfully, meaningfully answer the question, how is your walk with Jesus? Before we proceed, I want you to do a little thought experiment. Take about 10 seconds. If I actually put you on the spot, said, how is your walk with Jesus? Take about 10 seconds and think, how would I answer that? Just let that roll around a little bit. Would I just say good? What? I don't know if you came up with an answer, but I just want you to think about it, okay? Well, what does it mean to walk with Jesus? That's the question, as I said, we have to answer. So I don't know what kind of answer you could have given if we don't really know what that means in modern times without the living human Jesus. Jesus lives, but the human Jesus right with us. I have a couple of answers for you. That we have an intimate heart relationship with Jesus. What does that mean? That we have a relationship where He knows us and we know Him and we talk. But most importantly, what that means is He is our heart's desire. That when you walk with Jesus, there is no one, no thing, no concept, no idea more important to you than the living Jesus in your life. We've talked about the heart-shaped hole, the God-shaped hole in your heart. Okay, the God-shaped hole in your heart that is put there on purpose by God so that you will want to fill it with Him. When that happens, there is nothing that takes up more space in your heart than Jesus. Not your own life, not your spouse, not your kids, not if you have enough food, not if you have a roof over your head. And not the things that you used to fill that hole when you didn't have Jesus. Money, sex, drugs, alcohol, whatever. Jesus is the most important thing in your heart. He is your heart's desire. Because you see, the more Jesus you get, the more Jesus you want. If that's what's going on in your life, every day you want your heart to be more filled. It's not a chore, it's a desire. Your heart's desire. It's not a chore. Dude, I got to do stuff that, that pleases Jesus. No. You know He's your heart's desire. When the more Jesus you get, the more Jesus you want. The more you are like Jesus, the more you want to be like Jesus, and less like the old, dead you. You have given your life to Him. Now let all of that roll around for a little while. Now, let me ask you again. How's your walk with Jesus? Think of everything you just heard and ask yourself again, how is your walk with Jesus? Because it's about your heart burning for Him, yearning for Him. We have a burning desire for Jesus. Do you remember a moment in your adult life, the first time you were in love, the first time, when you fell in love with, if you have a significant other, a spouse, all you could think about is them. It's all you could think about. They were your burning desire. Now, on earthly terms, that can grow cold. In godly terms, it never should. So again, think about this, how is your walk with Jesus? Do you have a burning desire for Jesus? Let's go to Luke 24, verses 13 through 35. Now this happened, what we're about to talk about, happened on Resurrection Sunday. This is part of what other churches call the Easter story. Okay? There are two of Jesus' followers. This is right after the resurrection, right after. And they are walking from Jerusalem to a town called Emmaus. Let's pick it up there in verse 13. Now, that same day as the resurrection, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. 3 miles an hour is kind of what we go by on foot. 7 times 3 is 21, just under a full 24-hour day's walk. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus Himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing Him. And then Jesus does what I love. He asks a question He knows the answer to. We see this a lot. Women at the well, other times, Jesus is not asking a question to get an answer, to learn something. Jesus doesn't have to learn anything. But there is something in it for the person He's asking. He asks them, what are you discussing together as you walk along? They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked Him, are you only a visitor to Jerusalem and do not know the things that have happened there in these days? And Jesus keeps up with it. What things? What? Did I miss something? What happened? About Jesus of Nazareth, they replied. He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the third day since this all took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said. But him they did not see. Then Jesus says to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Christ have to suffer these things and enter his glory?" Don't you guys read the scripture? Don't you guys read what the prophet said about, me? You not get that? This has been the plan for centuries. And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus acted as if he were going farther. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were open, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. It's critical. The breaking of the bread. Now, these two weren't at the Last Supper, where Jesus said, "Do this in remembrance of me." But what does he say in John 6? "If you do not eat my flesh and drink my blood, you are not of me." And many Jews at that time left him because this guy's talking about cannibalism. We're supposed to eat him. No. That everything I told you about what we call the Old Testament that led up to Jesus, led up to that moment where the bread, my body, the blood, in their case the wine, in our case the juice, was given for you to make all this happen. Do this in remembrance of me. And even though they weren't at the Last Supper, it made sense to them because that sacrifice is what makes our hearts burn. You know why it seems impossible that salvation is so easy, all we have to do is say yes? Because Jesus paid so much for it. That's where you have a hard time buying this. Really? All I have to do is surrender my life. It's just, Jesus, I'm yours, and that's it? All my sins are forgiven forever? Really? Yeah! Because of that sacrifice. And that's why that, in my opinion, is the trigger that made them to, it's Jesus. Then their eyes were open and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" Open the scriptures. Now we got it. Now this, from Abraham on and on and on and on and on and on, now I get it. And it was triggered by the breaking of the bread. They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11, obviously no Judas. They found the 11 surviving apostles and those with them assembled together, saying, "It is true. The Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the two told them what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. See, that was really important. Two things. They had to go run and be with other believers. When he broke the bread, ping, we got it. We understood. So let's double back on some of this. Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? You see, that's what we're talking about today, the burning heart, the heart that burns for Jesus. When you understand salvation is so easy for you because it was so hard for Jesus, so free for you because he paid such a price, you can accept him and your heart can burn for him. It doesn't matter what's in your past. It just doesn't matter. Jesus doesn't care what you walk through the church door with, and neither do we. Yeah, he wants to meet you where you are and make you what he wants you to be. But what he wants is for your heart to burn for him, to yearn for him, that nothing in your heart is bigger or more important to you. That's what happened on the road. And Jesus would do it again with the surviving 11. The burning heart is the heart that burns for Jesus. So we're going to talk about 4 things today. How the fire is lit, how the fire is maintained, how you can quench the fire, I mean putting it out, which you don't want to do, but we're going to explain how that happens, and how then, if that happens to you, the fire is rekindled. So, how the fire is lit. Be prepared for Jesus to show up when you least expect him. Now, in the Gospels, Jesus says nobody knows the hour or the day. When we look at that, we're talking about when Jesus comes again at the end of time and the victory is complete. Be prepared, Jesus could show up at any time. That's true, but author Oswald Chambers took that a layer deeper. Be prepared for Jesus to show up when you're walking by yourself. The way he showed up to Cleopas and the other man, look for Jesus to show up to you that way, when you least expect it. The fire is lit when you accept Jesus into your heart and your heart burns for him. So then when he shows up in your life, that's when he blesses you with something amazing, when he gives you a trial that is to grow you, when he gets you through a trial, whatever it is. Be prepared to recognize him right there. Jesus will show up when you least expect him. What else might that look like? When you pray and you pray and you pray and you pray and you pray, maybe you stop praying for whatever it is. And suddenly the prayer is answered. Oh, that's Jesus. And then he wants you to do something in response to that. Do it. So, yeah, the Gospels warn us, and the letters by Paul, Peter, James, they all warn us. You don't know the hour of the day. But that next level, not just at the end of time, be prepared for Jesus always, anywhere in your life. When you have that, the fire is lit. That desire for Jesus. The more Jesus you get, the more Jesus you want. Be prepared for him to show up and show off in your life. Expect that's how life is going to be. Then you know the fire is lit. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. They were kept from recognizing him. And then Jesus walks them through all of the prophets because they are just barely on this side of the cross. We're 20 centuries this side of the cross. We know how all of this works, or we should, or we can. We know what the breaking of the bread means. We know that his amazing, incredible sacrifice is why it sounds too good to be true. We can't get salvation that easily. It wasn't easy. It was really hard, just not for us. They were kept from recognizing him. We aren't. We're past that. If we don't see him, it's an us thing, not a Jesus thing. Okay, so the fire is lit. How's the fire maintained? When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us?" And I keep coming back to that. While he talked with us on the road and opened the scripture to us. Why did we revisit this again? Breaking the bread. How do we maintain the fire? With communion. But I mean that in two senses of the word. Yes, what we call communion, where we, in remembrance of Jesus' incredible cost that he paid for us, so it's free salvation for us, we break the bread, we drink, in our case, the juice, some churches drink wine, his body and blood given freely for us. Remembering that tremendous cost helps our hearts to keep burning, and we see Jesus right there. But that's communion in one sense of the word. There's communion in another sense of the word that goes with communion, the bread and the juice. They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them, assembled together and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the two told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. So they told them the importance. Hey, he did this thing, and bing, Jesus. Do this in remembrance of me. But what did they do? Now that the hearts are burning, what did they do? Where did they go? To other believers, to be in the company of other believers, to share the good news with other believers. Like, yeah, he appeared to Simon. Now they're all doing this. That's how you maintain the fire. Burning logs. Okay, my pastor, mentor, friend, Pastor Terry, it's the first that I heard this from, but others have said this. We as believers, our burning hearts for Jesus are like burning logs. Okay? I don't know about you, but I am a big pit fire guy. I love me some pit fire. We have a pit in our backyard. I love doing it camping. I love doing it in my backyard, beach, whatever. I always have. Even when I was far from Christ, and maybe I didn't even realize this, I've always had the attraction to putting logs on the fire. So once the fire was going really good, I get my poker, my trusty poker, and I'll pull the logs together. The logs burn bright together. Jesus burns brighter in our hearts when we are with other logs, other believers, and we're close together. So I stress here, I don't encourage you to come to church so you can put money in the box, which, yes, every church needs finances, but that's not the motivation. The motivation isn't, you're going to go to hell if you don't go to church. Come to church. The motivation is to want to come to church. The motivation is to feel the bright burning fire of Jesus among other believers. Come here to love and be loved. Burning logs, burning bright together. That's how you maintain the fire. So guess what? How is the fire quenched? All right, when I'm ready to go to bed at midnight, okay, when I'm ready to go to bed at 9 o'clock, well, it used to be midnight, you know. What do I do with my poker? I separate the logs. I don't put any more logs on. A little lesson. When you add more logs, when you add more believers, the fire grows brighter. And when those believers are close together, the fire grows brighter. You can encourage one another. You can love one another. You can confess to one another. You can forgive one another. All those things makes the fire burn brighter. but you separate I take my poker and I separate the logs, and that fire goes out pretty darn fast. So you quench the fire here, thinking you can do this alone. Again, there was 2 of them on the road. What did Jesus say? Whenever 2 or more gather in my name, I'm there. Okay. Then what did they do? They went to more believers. So that's how you quench the fire. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, all the more as you see the day approaching. The writer of Hebrews doesn't say, or God's going to be really mad. That's not what he says. He says this is a healthy process. Be part of the body. So then obviously, how is the fire rekindled? Get close to the logs. Be a log. Be a burning log. Come be with other burning logs. And when we do that, when we're together, then the next step is to be, in the other sense of the word, communion. What triggered their memory? Breaking the bread. So yeah, it is important that we do that. Do you have a burning heart for Jesus? Now I want you to take all of that, and let's go back to the beginning. Answer to you wherever you are. How is your walk with Jesus? I pray that all of this is on your heart in the next week. God bless.